Good morning, everyone. Our first presentation today is how to hack your health, boost your immune system, and stop disease and inflammation in its tracks by Keri Brooks. Keri Brooks has worked as an expert in the field of holistic nutrition and integrative health for over 10 years. Her family's chronic health conditions ignited her passion for health and subsequently turned it into her life's purpose. Keri is a certified functional diagnostic nutritionalist, functional medicine practitioner, women's wellness specialist, and is an avid corporate speaker and food educator. Also, she holds certifications in personal training, Pilates, yoga, and intuitive healing. Most recently, she helped facilitate a landmark study as the lead nutritionist in a functional medicine study with the Mayo Clinic. She's the creator of 30 Days to Thrive, a transformational jumpstart program that has helped hundreds of families learn how to remove toxins from their bodies and homes and heal. So let's give her a round of applause.
Christy, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm glad to see the four of you in attendance, which is a great opportunity to be able to have some more intimate interaction, and have the opportunity to hopefully also have all of you ask more specific questions that may apply to you, your life, and your families. As Christy mentioned, my journey started maybe like many of you. It started with a yearning to get answers to my family's chronic health conditions. I had watched my mom struggle with chronic migraines, debilitating digestive disorders, and in and out of the hospital for over 3 decades. Fast forward to, in my 20s, my younger brother, who had been vibrant and healthy, an athlete his entire life, was diagnosed with colitis and nearly died. At 6'3", he was 122 pounds. He looked like an Auschwitz victim. And quite frankly, the solutions that both my mother and my brother were offered were many times more damaging than the diseases or diagnosis they were given themselves. I saw them go from expert to expert within mainstream medicine, and then also started seeing them reach out for Eastern practitioners, integrative practitioners, with very little relief. So fast forward to the birth of my 2 daughters, and I started seeing my children go down the same path very early on. Within 6 months, started seeing my daughter have acid reflux, severe GERD, chronic ear infections, having an ear infection every month, runny noses, fevers. And I said, hell no. That this was where my commitment and passion to this work really finally was fueled. And I searched out the biggest health renegades that I could possibly find that were going against mainstream, that were going against the things that we had been told and sold by industries that profit on our disease and profit on our addiction to foods that aren't really food. And had the opportunity of working with Dr. Dan Kalish, who is leading the charge for functional medicine in the East Bay. And he was the one who piloted the functional medicine study for the Mayo Clinic. And then worked with Reed Davis, who is the founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, as well as Paul Chek, who is the founder of the Chek Institute, which is really a focus on, he was one of the founders, really, who started driving just a holistic approach towards exercise and nutrition. He was the first one who started talking about soil health about 20 years ago, and looking at soil health and the intimate relationship that soil health has to our own microbiome, and that what's happening to our microbiome, what's happening to the soil out in the world, is actually also happening and mimicking what's happening to our digestive tracts. So my specialty is I work with women, not only digestive imbalances, but work with women who suffer from FLC. FLC syndrome is simply feel like crap syndrome. Is there anyone who might relate here? And it's women who have gone searching for answers and have been told that their test results look perfect and that you're just getting older or you're a mom of 3. And so sit back and know that from here it's just a slow decline and downhill slide, which is not the case, right? Which is absolutely not the case. Is that every symptom that arises is your warning sign. It doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It pops up after weeks, months, days, or even decades of imbalances. So my job, and the gift that I've had with working with hundreds of men and women, as well as children, I do men too, I do work with men as well, is that they were chronically part of the walking unwell. They were fatigued, they were frustrated, they were foggy-headed, frazzled, maybe suffering with anxiety and depression, and chronic laundry list of undiagnosable symptoms, not recognizing that they're all related. So I teach people how to become your own health detective, how to start to interpret the signs and symptoms of our body that we've been taught to ignore and know that they are painting a picture for us. And that's the beauty of this, is being able to start to really recognize what your body's trying to tell you and then giving you the most proactive approach to start to heal. Because anyone who's suffered with chronic disease, chronic imbalances, the hardest thing to watch is not the damage that it does to the physical body, it's the damage it does to the spirit and soul. And seeing that is the hardest thing to recover. So today, I hope that I help inspire you and empower you to continue to know that there is always steps you can take to start to improve your health, to start to change, to start to hopefully heal permanently, and not to give up. And to know that there's not one magic pill. I know yesterday a woman had stood up and said, how many of you guys were at dinner last night? We talked to almost everyone. Excellent. Talking about the fact that she had IBS, right? And, oh, yeah, that was you. Oh, that is you. Yeah, absolutely. And what I wanted to say is, again, just removing glyphosate may not be enough. Is that once, it's the same thing with someone who gets diagnosed with celiac disease. Yes. Yeah, so same thing with someone who gets diagnosed with celiac disease. I like to liken it to, you remove gluten. Gluten is the fuel that's been causing this massive fire. You remove it, you have to sit back, wait for the smoke to settle, and then evaluate the damage. Because depending on how long it's lasted, you then have bacterial overgrowth. You have yeast overgrowth. You may have parasitic infections. Your hydrochloric acid levels are low. You have a laundry list of nutritional deficiencies. You will have imbalances hormonally, maybe from your gut. So there's a laundry list of things that go on, but at least you get to know that as long as you're continuing to eat glyphosate or you're continuing to eat gluten, there's no possibility for healing, right? So today, we're going to really start talking. Oh, see, I told you I was going to do this. I said I was going to hit the wrong button. Hold on for 1 second. Let me just get this back into the beginning. There we go. Okay. We are going to start talking about kind of what is happening, what's driving massive amounts of inflammation in the body. Okay. Now it's wanting to do it all on its own. So anyone who's been in any of my talks before knows that I need to be actually wearing grounding and earthing shoes anytime I'm around electronics, because this happens all the time. We'll hopefully just take a deep breath and this will all go back to where it's supposed to go. Okay, so we're going to really start talking about like what has been the precipice? What has been the biggest thing that we can start looking at where there was suddenly an uptick, a massive change in our overall health. And Dr. Zach Bush, who I have the opportunity to mentor with right now, he is going to be a Nobel Prize winner. His research on the microbiome is absolutely mind-blowingly extraordinary, and he is taking it to a level that nobody has ever, that no one has ever gone. So one of the things that he said, which Jeffrey Smith said last night, was when you start looking at a simultaneous epidemics, we're looking at an uptick of Alzheimer's, of Parkinson's disease, in two different in men and women, right? So not just in men, not just in women. We start looking at autism, which are children. We start looking at the incidence of cancer rates in our pets. But then we also go out into nature and start seeing cancer rates, let's see, in the sea life population. And they all have a correlative effect to something happening in our environment, right? So we know that there have been other chemicals to come before us that can be kind of double down in increasing our risk for all of these things. But what is the biggest thing, and that has been having the most profound effect on disease factors, as well as on overall health. And disease trends, we're not going to get into a lot of the scary. I'm really good at scaring people. Today I'm going to focus more on the solutions. But disease trends, right? 1996, sudden spike in Alzheimer's, dementia in women, Parkinson's in men. Autoimmune disease has skyrocketed since the 1990s. We're having an increase of 17 to 20% in autoimmune disease, right? Allergies have massively increased. And you start seeing just our overall health outcomes, because we are a society, our medical industry focuses on disease management, not on being proactive and how to actually grow health, right? Build health, build upon health instead of just managing a disease. So inflammation, right? In 1999, Time, this was the cover of Time, and it was the secret killer is inflammation. Right? And everything from heart disease, we found out heart disease is not driven by cholesterol, but by inflammation. You get inflamed, usually one of the biggest inflammation drivers in your arteries and veins is high blood sugar. It works like sandpaper, and then suddenly your body's producing more cholesterol as an intelligent response to try to dampen the inflammation and the damage, right? Like spackling on walls because of all the damage. We now know Alzheimer's is an inflammatory response, depression, inflammatory response. But the bigger question, what's causing all the inflammation in the first place? It's the root of the root. So today we're going to talk about the most damaging, persistent sources of inflammation, but then give you the most profound changes from health hacks to dietary and lifestyle intervention you can do to support your body's own intrinsic healing, to support the opportunity for your body to heal on its own, because this is the most powerful machine that we have. There's not a single medicine that can heal us like our bodies can heal ourselves. So when we start talking about inflammation, we have to start where? We're going to go back to the father of medicine, Hippocrates, who said all disease starts in the gut. And it is absolutely the case. And we start saying start understanding the mechanism for inflammation and disease and why, that it starts in the digestive tract. And we start looking at, well, there's been this explosion of studying with the gut microbiome and looking at knowing that proper balances and a biodiverse microbiome is going to help actually produce your thyroid hormone, so you're not suffering from Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. We know that 90% of your neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine actually are produced in the gut. We know that when you start looking at, we have more bacteria. We are more bacteria than we are human. We are made up of 100 trillion types of 100 trillion gut bacteria. So we know that it's important, and that this is going to be the foundation of health. So two of the leading experts, Alessio Faziano, who is a world-renowned pediatric gastroenterologist and a leading researcher for celiac disease, stated that supporting intestinal health and restoring its integrity will be one of the most important goals of the 21st century. It's because, and we start to say that same thing is in a healthy state, right? This intestinal permeability is our firewall, our mucosal barrier. It's our firewall that keeps it basically keeps infection, it keeps viruses, it keeps parasites out from the outside world. It's our protection, right? It keeps viruses, and then it allows nutrients through. So these same junctions, ironically, the mucosal barrier, the gut is known as the second brain, happens in the brain. The exact same. If you have leaky gut, you have leaky brain. They go hand in hand. And you start looking at right here, this little mucosal layer is the size of one cell. It's the size of half of a thickness of your hair, and that's all that is keeping out everything that we come up against, from antibiotics to glyphosate to viruses to bacteria. And when it's functioning optimally, we're healthy. The second that this starts to break down, we start seeing a host of complications. So leaky gut complications, parasitic infections, low enzymes, overgrowth of bacteria and yeast. If you have SIBO or SIBO, which is small intestinal yeast overgrowth, it's simply a symptom of a damaged digestive tract. So if you only go to treat SIBO, right, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or yeast overgrowth, without improving the health of your digestive tract, it will keep coming up. And this is why one of the recurrences, there's a high rate of recurrence with SIBO, with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is 80% of the cause of IBS. So IBS, anyone who has IBS who hasn't been treated, who hasn't been tested for SIBO, get tested for SIBO. If you're local, I work with several integrative gastroenterologists who will test you and treat you integratively. And they also will work with me to help so that I can help support you through the process. So if you have never been tested for SIBO, it's a breath test, you need to be tested for SIBO, and know that there's still an underlying cause. It may be gluten sensitivity, it may be glyphosate. One of the most common causes of SIBO and IBS is low hydrochloric acid in the stomach. And making sure that you're looking at why it's low in the first place. Is it just age and stress, or is it a bacterial infection called H. pylori, which is incredibly common. H. pylori is a bacteria that is the number one cause of stomach ulcers and stomach cancer. There is some research and talk going on that maybe H. pylori isn't the problem, that H. pylori can live symbiotically in our bodies, but because our immune system is overactive, H. pylori is fighting back, and then it becomes a problem. So right now we're still treating H. pylori, and my Foundations for High Vibe Living, I have an ebook that you all will have access to after this to download. I actually have some of the most powerful herbs that you can use to actually start healing the lining of the stomach and to get rid of H. pylori on your own, which can be very, very helpful. Manuka honey is another thing that can be helpful, but I go through a lot of these solutions. And then you have to get your HCl levels up, hydrochloric acid levels. Cause of acid reflux is not too much hydrochloric acid. That's a myth. It's generally low levels of hydrochloric acid that you start having imbalances so that the body can't digest protein and fat, it can't get rid of foodborne pathogens, and then food starts to putrefy in your small intestine, and then bacteria likes to have a party, and yeast has a party. So you start improving your digestion, and suddenly bacteria and yeast come back into balance so that there's no more symptoms. Food sensitivities, I test people for food sensitivities. I've had people have upwards of 50 to 80 different food sensitivities. All that tells me is you have severe leaky gut. Once your digestive tract is healed, food sensitivities start to disappear. Liver overload, anytime you're having digestive imbalances, your poor little liver, your liver is working really hard. It's even more important and imperative that you work on ways to help invigorate and support your detox pathways. And we'll get to some of those today. And then nutritional deficiencies. So again, here is Alessio Faziano, and just talking about the connection between leaky gut and autoimmunity. It goes hand in hand. The second that you have this firewall that's removed that just allows everything to start coming in, guess what happens to the body? It's like, help me, and it just starts attacking everything, including our own healthy tissue, right? MS is you're attacking the nervous system, right? Hashimoto's, attacking the thyroid. And you know that there's a very high correlation between gluten sensitivity and Hashimoto's because of molecular mimicry. That the body thinks the tissue of the thyroid is so similar molecularly to a gluten molecule that is attacking the thyroid, thinking it's attacking gluten. So many times you start removing gluten, you'll see thyroid antibodies dramatically decrease. Hydrochloric acid, the second you get hydrochloric acid levels, you'll start seeing Hashimoto's antibodies half. I've seen people about a 75% decrease just by starting to increase hydrochloric acid levels and start to improve digestion so that your diversity of your gut can actually start to recover. Okay, so Dr. Faziano, also is the founder of this magic protein called zonulin. How many of you have actually heard of zonulin before? Oh my God, awesome. A couple of you, great. Yeah. Yes, of course, yeah. Yeah, please, take photos. So zonulin is this amazing protein that regulates our tight junctions. It allows them to open up, to allow white blood cells to come through and go attack, right, an infection. It also opens up to allow nutrients to come through. And then when it's working optimally, it closes back up so that we're protected. What happens, though, is zonulin starts to break. When we start having an overproduction of zonulin, it starts to literally unzip our mucosal barrier, unzip our brain, right? The blood-brain barrier gets opened up. It literally starts to crumble, and then we are left unprotected. And so the bigger question is, what are two of the biggest zonulin stimulators that they found, or three of them? And here they are. So zonulin, well, that's next. So zonulin, this has been serum and plasma zonulin, which you can test. The testing, again, there's still some discussion around how effective testing is for zonulin, because when you look at all of these different symptoms, that zonulin is elevated in all of them. However, not everyone that has celiac disease has elevated zonulin. So this is where we're going, okay, well, we're still working on the research on this, but it is one predictive measure for leaky, absolutely for leaky gut. And so what are the most potent zonulin stimulators? Glyphosate. Glyphosate, what Zach Bush has actually shown is as you ingest glyphosate, it literally, within minutes, your mucosal barrier starts to crumble. Same thing, he's seen the same thing with gluten, which is what? Laden with glyphosate. And we know, obviously, that glyphosate is patented as an antibiotic. When I heard this, I was like, this is the most shocking information I had ever heard. How can anyone, especially even mainstream doctors, are trying not to prescribe antibiotics? And yet now we are getting antibiotics in the air we breathe, the soil that we're playing in, that our food is grown in, and the water that we drink, even if you're eating organic. It's in 75% of our rainwater worldwide right now. So, but it will be at lower levels, right? It's going to be at lower levels. Gluten, and then endotoxins. So one of the most damaging things that causes massive inflammation is our own digestive tract. That's where disease starts. When we start having an imbalance, we have an imbalanced microbiome, our gut ecology, it produces massive amounts of toxins. Yeast, for instance, right? Candida, 79 different mycotoxins. One of them is acetaldehyde. Acetaldehyde is a byproduct of what? Does anyone know? Alcohol. So when you drink too much and you feel hungover, it's because you have too much acetaldehyde circulating in your body, and that's why you feel like crap. The same thing is produced when you have yeast overgrowth. So I have had clients that say, I feel like I'm hungover all the time. Or when we start doing a die-off protocol, if we have not supported their detox pathways first, they get basically the flu, right? And they feel like they're hungover. And it's because their body is overloaded with toxins. These endotoxins are released by pathogens, so parasites, pathogenic bacteria, and then bacterial overgrowth in the gut. Now, we know glyphosate is also associated with the overgrowth of pathogens, lactobacillus, bifidobacteria, and enterococcus strains, which are some of the biggest, most common strains that we know that help keep bacteria in balance. It's our checks and balances, are incredibly susceptible to Roundup. And as Jeffrey Smith said last night, pathogenic bacteria like strep, resistant. So then we wonder why we're seeing all of these pathogenic or problematic bacteria taking off, where I will measure people's levels of lactobacillus and bifidobacter, and they have non-detectable levels. Even though they're eating an organic diet, however, I'm still going to be now stressing and saying, are you truly eating an organic diet, right? Because I think that is, even looking in my own diet, I buy organic 100% of the time, but if I eat something processed that's gluten-free, high levels of GMOs in them, right? So I have to take my own inventory to start recognizing this. But you start removing these, I will tell you, removing gluten from someone's diet who's had chronic digestive imbalances, chronic laundry list of, autoimmune diseases or laundry list of mysterious symptoms has been the most profound impact, hands down. If you've never tried it, go gluten-free for 100% for a minimum of 2 weeks, ideally 30 days, and see what happens. I've seen autoimmune diseases go into remission on my 30 Days to Thrive program within 2 weeks. I've seen people's insomnia disappear, chronic insomnia disappear, you name it. I've had someone say that their eyesight improved. And she's like, look, here's my eye test. And that, so who knows, lower levels of inflammation, and you will have this you can have miraculous healing. You're allowing the body to intrinsically heal. Okay, so Journal of Interdisciplinary Toxicology. This is just a little bit about Roundup. If you're still not convinced that Roundup is dangerous, just in case, we're going to give you just a couple more slides. We propose that glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, is the most important causal factor for the epidemic of celiac disease. Most important causal, right? Everyone goes, why? Why are we suddenly seeing everyone has gluten sensitivity or celiac disease? Now, we have a high level from a genetic predisposition in the United States because Northern Europeans, Eastern European Jewish descent, highest level of celiac. So when I start doing genetic testing on people, yes, people will have celiac. My daughter has double celiac gene. I have one. We treat everyone in the family as celiac because of that. Because the only way to trigger that gene is by eating gluten, right? But highest level, fish exposed to glyphosate develop the same digestive problems, similar and reminiscent to celiac disease. Same thing with Jeffrey Smith was talking yesterday about what happens in cows. That you remove Roundup, ready crops from their food, you start feeding them organic feed, and cows that are mimicking the same exact symptoms of autism, antisocial behavior, they won't look you in the eye, they may be ramming themselves up against a fence, suddenly become social again. Suddenly start acting like cows. From removal of glyphosate and GMOs. Yeah. So, we've never seen behavior like that in cows before. And now it's the same as what we're seeing is the rates of autism in 1975 are 1 in 5,000, and now we're somewhere between 1 in 36 to 1 in 48. And then if we continue on this trend, 1 in 3 by 2035. But we're looking at what the solution is right here. The solution is the organic movement has exploded. We were told it was just a trend. We were told it was a passing trend. It has massively exploded. You look at organizations like Costco, who is actually now helping farmers get loans to grow organic crops. We're looking at Zach Bush, who is going across America creating a documentary on regenerative farming practices, on bringing life back to the soil. Because that is what's going to produce amazingly nutrient-dense food for us. Glyphosate residue in wheat and other crops is likely increasing recently due to this desiccation process just prior to harvest. Wheat's not a genetically modified crop, but they spray it because it speeds up the milling process, right? Makes it easier to get rid of all the weeds. So we're having massive levels of glyphosate on top of the fact that wheat has been hybridized, and we have 50% more gluten in our wheat than we do in Europe. Europe can't import our wheat because it won't work in the recipes. It's so that we can make Wonder Bread and Twinkies the size of our, Twinkies and bagels the size of our head, right? We always have to do bigger and better here. So here is, again, just an uptake. This is purely glyphosate on wheat and celiac incidence. Crazy, right? Crazy, crazy. This is just glyphosate on wheat. This doesn't have to do with GMOs. This is not even related to GMOs. So we have glyphosate just on wheat, and then the introduction of GMOs. What happened right in 1990s? This is where our disease epidemic literally exploded. If you look at, anyone ever heard of Cancer Alley? Cancer Alley is where? It's at the end of the Mississippi River, at the end of the breadbasket of America. The highest measurable rates of glyphosate in the world, the highest rates of cancer anywhere in the world. Shocking, right? Glyphosate, right? Or not. Like, oh, okay, this should just give you some. I had someone stand up in a lecture I was giving on GMOs, and she's like, "You're wrong," and "Man, you're wrong." And I'm like, do we really think this is what they're doing just to pour this in, and that it's sprayed on our food that we eat every single day isn't an issue? There was a study out of Stanford saying they had done a study and there's no nutritional difference between conventional and non-organic food. And I'm going, you're completely missing the point. Even if you believe that study, you're pouring toxins, poison on your food. Is that a good idea to ingest? No, right? In terms of just the reality check, and this literally made my head pop off when I learned about this. It's called the shikimate pathway. It's only in plants. And this, if you go on to Monsanto's website, they'll talk about this and go, guess what? It's totally safe for humans. Humans don't have a shikimate pathway. So a shikimate pathway is what allows a plant to produce tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine. Tyrosine is a precursor for dopamine. Tryptophan is a precursor for serotonin. Phenylalanine is a precursor for dopamine and your endorphins. So a plant can no longer produce these things. Okay, well, great. We can get tryptophan, and these are essential amino acids, meaning our body does not produce these. So you primarily get them in higher levels through animals. But what's happening, animals and humans are eating these plants that are devoid of them. And then we're eating the animals that are devoid in them. And we're wondering why we're having huge issues with ADD, huge issue with neurological imbalances, increases in depression, anxiety, right? It's an inflammatory response as well. ADD, ADHD, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Shocking. And again, I have an organic acids test that measures high levels of organic acids in individuals' urine. And it looks at their nutritional profile. So we'll look at your mineral levels, your Bs. We'll look at your detox pathways. But it also looks at neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, phenylalanine, or norepinephrine and epinephrine. And it's maddening to see how low people's levels are. And we start recognizing, well, guess what? You can't just get it from your food. Folate is also interfered with. Folate we get primarily from green leafy veggies and from veggies, and folate levels are going to be very much minimized in genetically modified food or food that's been sprayed with Roundup. And folate is going to be responsible for DNA and red blood cell production, right? Getting oxygen to our cells. So how do you build a better microbiome? You stop murdering your microbes. Eliminate glyphosate, gluten, and GMOs. So anyone says, why don't you eat Roundup? I don't want to murder my microbes, right? Grow your own, insist on biodynamic, regenerative farming practices, minimally certified organic. Growing your own is going to be one of the best things. Don't wash your produce, because guess what? The bacteria in the soil is one of the best ways to start diversifying our own gut ecology. Start actually rebuilding our gut microbiome. More powerful than any probiotic you'd be able to take is starting to get out into nature, get out into dirt that you know is healthy, right? So build your own garden. There's even a fascinating, even eating off the vine, that the second you pick a plant, the vitality of that plant energetically and frequency of that plant goes from right spin to left spin. The second that it goes to left spin, it starts down basically and starts to decompose. So if you can actually eat like animals, getting that off the vine, you are getting the highest level of vitality from that plant, the highest level frequency you can actually get from that plant. Just a nice little, so I want to see you guys all in your garden, down on your hands and knees like a deer, eating your lettuce. Step away from hand sanitizer, such a bad idea. I have clients that will, carry it around in their purse, such a bad idea, because again, it's just killing our own microbiome on our skin, making us more susceptible to infection and disease. Open your windows. Talk to your gardener. This is so huge. Here I am, like, organic everything, preaching about how bad glyphosate is. My gardener was spraying Roundup. So talk to your gardener, because almost all of them are. Get involved in your community, because most parks and school grounds, as we just said, this groundbreaking precedent building case that we just had against Monsanto in San Francisco begs the question, he's a groundskeeper. What's happening to our kids and our pets that are running around on the ground sprayed with glyphosate? I'm wondering if that's why animals have such crazy high levels of glyphosate, right? Because they're running around on all the ground that's being sprayed by this stuff, on top of and then ingesting it probably just by because they're so close and low to the ground. Open your windows, let microbes flow. This is the groundbreaking study and information that Zach Bush is doing. He says get into as many different ecosystems as you possibly can. Breathe in microbes. If you're in the city, have plants inside your home, because that is actually one way to start rebuilding your microbiome, right? And his research is not only groundbreaking from that standpoint, but as we look at the soil, do you know trees communicate or have the ability to communicate with one another through mycelia? They communicate through fungus and bacteria in our soils. And they know when disease and famine's coming, they communicate to each other to say it's coming. If there's a tree that's diseased, they will send resources to it. Our soil and gut microbiome is exactly the same way. And our microbes are believed to be our cellular communication system. The bacteria in our body, which is why we have over 100 trillion, is responsible for allowing our cells to communicate with each other. The second you have a loss in cellular communication, disease becomes rampant. Cancer. Cancer is a damaged cell that should actually self-destruct. Our cells are programmed to self-destruct, but they become isolated and can't communicate, thinking they're all alone. So what do they start doing? Replicate and replicate and replicate and replicate to try to communicate. That is how cancer starts. So if you can re-establish cellular communication, which again, Zach Bush is leading the charge on this, your body can intrinsically heal. You do that by increasing your gut microbes. Get out in the soil, go barefoot, I hike barefoot. I use earthing and grounding shoes, so I have dirt all over me. I have my kids in the soil as much as possible. I garden. I spend as much time outside, in nature, away from glyphosate as I possibly can. Okay, so top microbe whacking villains. We know Roundup, glyphosate, your GMOs, gluten, medications just in case you thought these were a good idea. So antibiotics, obviously, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, antacids, steroids, and birth control. All interfere with gut microbiome massively. Antacids, such a bad idea. Now, I'm not saying go off your antacid, but what I am saying is find a functional medicine practitioner or an integrative health practitioner to identify why you have acid reflux, GERD, in the first place, to get off of it. It has the black box warning on acid reflux, and according to Dr. Mark Hyman, who is leading functional medicine practitioner and New York Times bestselling author, antacids are the most damaging medication on the market because it interferes with your body's ability to digest food and absorb nutrients. You can't absorb minerals. You can't break down B12. You can't absorb and digest protein and fat. And then you wonder why you're having kidney failure, hormonal imbalances, issues with your bones. Gut dysbiosis, so get rid of SIBO, yeast, and parasites because of the high level of endotoxins. And then just gut irritants, right? These are going to be, cargillinin is a filler that's found in most dairy-free milks, nut milks. So make sure they're starting to take it out of there, but it can be a massive gut irritant. If you have SIBO, these fillers, all the gums, gar gums, cargillinin is going to be a massive, massive issue. So get off of them. Make your own almond milk. It tastes 10 times better anyway if you're not doing dairy. Artificial sweeteners. Okay, so how to protect and improve your gut biodiversity. Go barefoot. You want to make sure that you're exploring different ecosystems, get out into nature, grow your own food, and then feed your body greens. So what we've started seeing with this explosion of gut microbiome research is that the more diverse your diet is, the more diverse your gut ecology is. So making sure, and most of us, how many of you kind of have a mono diet where you eat the same thing over and over again? I know I get into a rut of like, oh, I'm eating the same things over and over again, or I have my favorite veggies. Eating seasonally is one of the best ways to do it, right? Because you're then really making sure and ensuring that you're getting a wide variety of different greens and veggies to diversify and build more strains of gut bacteria in your gut. Now, if you have SIBO or gut bacterial overgrowth, working on probiotics and eating a ton of greens is going to be problematic. You'll probably need to follow a low FODMAP diet forever. That is not a diet that you should have to stay on. It is damaging for your colon health. So really important for people like, I'm on FODMAPs forever and ever. No, we need to try to get you off FODMAPs because fermentable carbohydrates, right, help do what? They build your microbiome in your colon. That is what actually feeds bacteria in your gut, is prebiotics, right, and fermentable carbohydrates. So all the high fiber foods, but if you have SIBO, you're going to have to bring those out of your diet for a little bit, follow low FODMAP, work on balancing out the bacteria. You probably need to do a gut killing protocol, either with herbs or a really powerful antibiotic that actually called, it's not called Remicade, I'm blanking, rifaximin. Rifaximin for SIBO is incredibly effective. I will always go on the holistic route if possible, but it's incredibly effective, and 97% of it stays in your intestinal tract and does not go through liver detox. So incredibly effective, and then you follow it with an herbal protocol. So feed the machine greens. So these are just some really great fermentable carbohydrates, everything from legumes as long as they're non-GMO and organic, right, because they're highly sprayed with glyphosate. Jicama, Brussels sprouts, sunchokes, artichoke, chicory root, right, are all going to be high levels of prebiotics to help build something called butyrate. So not only are you building your microbiome and your bacteria, but butyrate is the most protective compound to prevent against colorectal cancer and ulcerative colitis. If you look up butyrate under Wikipedia, it basically says that when your levels are low, your colon starts to self-digest. What happens when your stomach starts to self-digest? You develop ulcers. You build butyrate with high levels of prebiotics, as well as a diverse microbiome, probiotics, and you're protected against colorectal cancer. And in my experience working with ulcerative colitis, you get butyrate levels up, colitis disappears. I had a 19-year-old who was told her entire colon was going to need to be taken out. She had colitis. She came to me, and within 10 months, her entire colon was healed. The doctors at Kaiser called it miraculous healing, spontaneous healing. And I was like, no, she worked incredibly hard to look at the under. She had a parasitic infection. She had bacterial overgrowth. She had massive food sensitivities. She had nutritional deficiencies. And then she healed very quickly. Generally, gut healing, 2 to 5 years, depending on the damage. So it is a process, but that doesn't mean that you start improving and seeing dramatic improvements long before that. Okay, so the good news is you can cultivate new microbiota in just 24 hours by changing the way you eat and stopping murdering them, right? So I've already told you the easiest way to stop murdering them. Exercise is shown to change your microbiome. Exercise outside. Exercise outside in the woods. Redwoods and ferns have one of the most diverse microbiome and rich soil you can find. And guess what? We have a ton of those here. You can go, if you're local, get out into the redwoods and ferns. I swear, my genetics, obviously, I do not have a tremendous amount of genetic wealth, given my family's history of autoimmune disease and everyone around me suffering, and yet I've maintained my health. And I'm going to relate it. I'm going to say not only I've been following almost all of these things, but I spend more time out in nature than almost anyone I know. I spend a tremendous amount of time in what I call my joy spot, doing activities and playing. And I've been incredibly active, right? Exercise is not going to be the only thing. If you're exercising in a gym, get outside. I do my weight training outside. I do everything I possibly can outside. And I attribute my health to it. And now there's a scientific reason why, because I've been building my microbiome, right? Every day that I'm spending outside and moving. Okay, rebuilding your hydrochloric acid levels. I'm not even going to talk about probiotics right now. We're going to talk about hydrochloric acid. Rebuild your hydrochloric acid levels. So it's the first line of defense against foodborne pathogens, triggers pancreatic enzymes, improves protein and fat absorption, promotes healthy B12, initiates mineral absorption, correlates with decreased Hashimoto's antibodies. And what you can do in my guide, which I'm actually going to start passing this around, because if you put your email down, I will send you my ebook. Know that you will, I hate emails. I hate writing emails. You may get one email a quarter, if you're lucky, from me, maybe. And it will usually just be events that I'm having, either free online events or events that I'm having locally that I would love for you to join. So HCl with betaine and pepsin challenge, I show you how to do this to raise your hydrochloric acid levels. I also talk about who it's contraindicated for, but how you can actually, I have some clients who are so deficient in hydrochloric acid, they're taking 10 capsules of HCl with every meal. Now, that may not be forever, but it just shows that that is how deficient their body is and how much their body's struggling. Chronic constipation, sign of low HCl. Chronic constipation is not a fiber or water deficiency. Fiber will make it worse. So low HCl, this can literally be a life changer, just getting your hydrochloric acid levels up. You want to either rule out antiparietal antibodies, that is basically your body an autoimmune reaction, that your body is actually damaging your parietal cells so you can't produce hydrochloric acid. And in that case, balancing out the immune system, but also supporting yourself with HCl can be incredibly powerful and a way to actually reduce these antibodies. And then ruling out H. pylori. Those are all kind of steps, and those are in my ebook for you to follow. So really powerful. Now, ways to rebuild your hydrochloric acid levels naturally. Celery juice. Celery is one of the most healing foods on the planet because it's high level of mineral salts, helps with electrolyte balance, which all of us are massively low on minerals, particularly because of glyphosate and low levels of hydrochloric acid. So celery juice on its own is going to be where it is most potent. Start your day with 12 to 16 ounces of celery juice on an empty stomach. It helps improve cellular communication, intercellular hydration, and helps dramatically with bringing up your hydrochloric acid levels. Now, it may not be enough for some of you. Some of you are going to have to supplement with HCl, but this is one way to help maintain healthy levels using food. And a couple of the juice companies out there do a celery juice. Apple cider vinegar, right? Another one of Earth's miracle cures. 2 teaspoons, 4 ounces of water before your meals. Helps digest protein and fat. Helps alkalize the body. And this is also in my ebook. And is a great heartburn remedy as well. It's one of the things I'll utilize with clients as we're trying to taper them off of their proton pump inhibitors or antacids. So, health hacks. Just eat real food. JERF. What am I doing? Dieting? No, I'm just eating real food that comes from the earth, that is organic, non-GMO, minimally, right? Because this is where you're going to start building a better microbiome, building a better body, and rebuilding a healthy gut equals a healthy human. Number 2 is detox. Now, this is not detoxing by taking a harsh purgative and being chained to your bathroom floor and not being able to leave the house for 3 days. Detox that I'm talking about is a cellular detox and detox by supporting the intrinsic healing of the liver and all of your detox pathways by providing the body with the building blocks it needs to function optimally. One of the most profound ways to detox the body is fasting. Now, I have to tell you personally, right, I've been a nutritionist for almost 20 years. And I've worked with disordered eating. I had some disordered eating myself, of skipping meals. And so I finally prescribed to eating 3 meals and 2 snacks, even though I thought, I shouldn't do this. And I felt so much better. And my blood sugar started coming into balance. my weight normalized, my mood normalized. And so when I have a colleague who's been studying longevity for decades told me, you got to try fasting, I said, hell no. Why would I starve myself? And why would I encourage my clients to start fasting? Because it looks very similar to what I would think is almost disordered eating, right? You're going into caloric deficit, extreme caloric deficit. However, when I started looking at the research, not for a weight loss tool, a research for disease prevention, mind-blowing. Walter Longo, who's a PhD and runs the USC Longevity Institute, says, let's combine hacking with our history and where we come from to make sure we stay in tune with evolution. From an evolutionary standpoint, fasting is a 5,000-year-old ancient tradition that is practiced in every religion across the world. When you get sick, what does your body do? It encourages you to what? Fast. And it's this intrinsic, amazing healing capability of the body that when you get into caloric deficit and go without food, it massively improves your immune function. Massively. So here are some of the things. Fasting provides the body with a cellular detox. It provides rest and healing for your digestive tract. Your digestion takes up to 80% of your body's resources to digest your food instead of working on what? Healing and balancing and growth and regeneration. It increases healing hormones, specifically human growth hormone, which dramatically decreases. Human growth hormone is what helps people will take HGH, right? If you've heard of the HGH diet, because suddenly your body fat decreases, your muscle mass increases, because ours starts to decrease over time. And this naturally promotes human growth hormone, which is very regenerative and healing. But this is the most amazing thing ever, promotes autophagy. This is the magic bullet. It literally comes in, autophagy has to do, it's a Greek word, meaning devouring or self-digesting. It will search out the second you lower glycogen and glucose. Glycogen is what glucose is stored in. Your all weak and damaged cells don't survive. And autophagy allows the body to go and find those damaged cells and literally clear them out. They've seen with studies on MS that damaged neurons were literally devoured, and they started having regeneration of neurons in MS with fasting. They've seen with cancer cells that cancer cells starts to be devoured. Now, if you are in later stages of cancer, you have to be careful with this. It should be medically supervised because cancer can hijack this mechanism and actually use it to its advantage. It literally, and from a weight loss standpoint, sure, you're going to lose weight. In terms of sustainable weight loss, we don't know. But it will getting into visceral fat, which visceral fat is creates inflammatory cytokines. Visceral fat actually promotes inflammation and creates inflammation in the body. So the adage that if you lose weight, you get healthier, there is some truth to that, if you're losing visceral fat. Okay, so what inhibits autophagy? Insulin, as well as mTOR. mTOR is protein synthesis. When mTOR is low, it rebuilds and regenerates. With mTOR is high, it promotes growth like cancer. So when you get into fasting and caloric deficit, you start having insulin levels massively drop and mTOR levels drop. So you get regeneration and growth. Inflammation, literally within 3 to 5 days, inflammatory markers can decrease by 50 to 80%. CRP, C-reactive protein, 60%. IGF marker, which is related to cancer, was decreased over 60% by doing intermittent fasting, 5 days of fasting for 3 months. Resets the whole body. Okay, so ideal within 16 to 24 hours of fasting. Now, this is just what they found is you don't have to be on water. You can be doing teas and broth. It's caloric deficit where you're decreasing what? Carbohydrate intake and protein intake. So you could be doing tons of low starch veg and fat like a ketosis. That's why ketosis is so effective, because it almost mimics fasting. And I'm not encouraging ketosis as a long-term health strategy because, again, there's some issues with ketosis, long-term health strategy, particularly with gut health. But it does allow you to get into autophagy. So if you're utilizing this once a quarter, once a year, if you're utilizing this, depending on your health, you may need to do it once a quarter. If it's just you're in general good health, maybe once or twice a year. You could incorporate a 5-day fast. It ramps up after 48 hours. The biggest benefit is 72 hours. 72 hours, 3 to 5 days. Massive benefits for decreasing inflammation, increasing anti-inflammatory cytokines, improving immune function. We don't have time to get into this, but if you read about fasting, you're going to start seeing benefits with the immune system, benefits with the brain, benefits with the liver, benefits with the pancreas. So types of fasting, how do you even get started? You can start with a 16-hour, 18-hour, or 20-hour fast with your eating periods between 8, 6, and 4 hours. So you fast for 16 hours, and then you're only eating food within 8 hours of the day. Seem to be fairly beneficial. That's where, right, autophagy just starts. So you slowly work up to this. If you're used to eating 5 meals a day, don't go, I'm just going to start with a 16 and 18-hour fast, because you're not going to feel well. You have to start converting yourself from a sugar burner into a fat burner, where you start getting into ketosis, and it makes it much easier. So if you start eating a more balanced diet in terms of protein and fat, lower starch and lower carbohydrates, this is how you start to transition into this. Dr. Jason Fung, he has a book, and it's also in my ebook, and I have a link to it, which is the guide to intermittent fasting on how to get started. So if something you want to try and experiment with, and questions like, oh my God, I'm going to be starving, or I have no energy, or how am I going to think? You have crazy amounts of mental clarity, your energy, because when you get into fasting, it drives up cortisol and it drives up adrenaline. So again, long-term fasting strategy, doing this day to day, I don't encourage, because it can burn out your adrenal function. It is a stressor on the body. But doing this from a therapeutic approach, magic. So again, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a month for a little while. The fasting mimicking diet, which is Walter Longo's approach. Again, he has a book, it's called The Longevity Diet. And his is 5 days, completed once a month. And you're just doing caloric restriction between 700 to 1,000 calories. It should be 1,000, not 100. Tea, coffee, broth, veggies, healthy fats. So there's the beauty in fasting is there's so much flexibility, right? I enjoy eating breakfast and lunch. I stop eating around 2, and then I fast until the next day. Some people will skip breakfast. I don't like skipping breakfast. Also, the benefit's a little bit more, you don't want to be eating a huge meal before you go to bed, because that's where most regeneration and healing happens. But again, if I know I have a dinner coming up, fine. Then I eat, and then I can do my fasting. So lots of flexibility with it. Again, using it as a therapeutic approach. Now, contraindications. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, children under 18, and if you're underweight. If your BMI is less than 18.5, contraindicated. You can fast, but you need medical supervision. Anyone with type 1 or type 2 diabetes, because obviously your glucose, insulin levels can massively drop, and you can get into some dangerous levels. If you have gout, a high uric acid, serious illness, or are taking prescription meds, you need to be careful. Okay. So again, this is fasting a passing trend? Nope, it's a 5,000-year-old tradition. Thank you, guys. So just to finish up, this is going to be in my book, is the benefits of castor oil. I use this all the time. Again, looking at the research that I did on this, it's what our grandparents used to use. Unbelievable for promoting lymphocytes and promoting immune health immediately, within 20 minutes. It can decrease histamine response in the body. It helps with menstrual cramps, helps with fibroids. It's amazing. And you can use it literally just by slathering it on your body. You can utilize it with heat. It helps with the absorption. But literally, I'll put it underneath my armpits because there's tons of lymphs here. I'll put it around my neck, and I'll sleep with it on. It's sticky, but my body may absorb it. Yes? Okay. Let's get out of here. Yes, wrap up. Okay, so if you guys have questions, I will be out front, and you can come and ask questions. If you didn't sign up for my ebook, there's a clipboard going around, or you can give me your information. And if you need to get a hold of me, Keri Brooks Health is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Thank you guys so much.